Welcome, guys. This is the Ramblin' Man episode 12. I've been gone for a little bit. Life got a little bit crazy, which we'll talk about a little bit about what happened. Nothing super crazy, but thanks for being here. If you're listening on any of the streaming platforms, go ahead and drop a follow. If you like the content that I provide and the conversations that we have on here, leave a rating and a review. If you're watching on YouTube, a lot of people that are watching the video stream, go ahead and subscribe, drop a comment, like the video, let me know what you want to hear more about, and thanks for the support. So it's been, I don't remember, it's been a couple weeks since I've had a podcast uploaded. It's been a little bit crazy, but the reason why I was gone for a little bit was I actually got COVID, which is interesting because it's an interesting topic to me in the sense that, everybody talks about it and, everybody's worried. There's a couple things to me that are very important in terms of COVID. Just from what I experienced. Number one, I was not, even though I have a lot of skepticism about reporting and data from COVID and the people that are supposed to be the leaders in this country and the doctors and the people that are supposed to be so smart give conflicting information, gives people a lot of distrust for the people that are supposed to be the standard for us. So it gave me skepticism, which I think a lot of people should be skeptical about the true nature of what they're saying and how it's portrayed. I think media is definitely one of the biggest enemies of the country and its civilians. But, when the lockdown first happened, or the quarantine shutdown, whatever you want to call it, my family took it very seriously. Before it happened, we went, got a bunch of groceries, and we didn't leave our house. We didn't see anybody. So much so that I didn't see my parents, or they couldn't see my daughter, their granddaughter, for an extended period of time. And same with all of our family, And it was during Easter, and they did put out eggs for my daughter's Easter egg hunt and stuff like that, but they watched from afar. And that's how serious we took it, where it was not something that we were taking lightly, even if I myself had some questions about what was really happening and so on and so forth. We took it serious though. We didn't go anywhere. We stayed home. We never really went out. I think for the first 4 weeks, we really didn't even go to the grocery store. We had gotten enough groceries to make it at least a month or so. And we took all the precautions that were said. What's interesting to me is the fact that we did that. We did what we were told. We followed the rules to help, keep this from becoming something that got out of control. Yet it didn't do anything. It may have flattened the curve, but we still ended up in a predicament based on the numbers that are presented to us. And, we didn't get sick or anything like that at the time. And, we did everything we could. And it's just, to me, it's in theory, if everybody did what they were supposed to, the whole country locked down, everybody stayed home for 4 to 6 weeks, and the cases that were serious went to the doctor and it was handled. Theoretically, this probably could have been something that was averted. But you have a lot of people that don't take personal responsibility. It's a small sacrifice. If people didn't I'm not one to be pro shutdown. I just don't believe that people should just not work and have excuses to be lazy and stuff like that. That's just my personal thought. I think that it's unhealthy from a mental and standpoint and the way that people are. I understand that there's certain circumstances where people may not be able to leave because they have, they're immunocompromised or whatever. I understand that. But I think for the large population, a shutdown is not something that's conducive, especially economically and stuff like that. And I'm not like a greedy person. I just think about an average American that needs money to survive, or, that a small business. And I happen to have been a small business owner that is affected by something like that. So I'm not like pro shutdown, but to me it's a small sacrifice to pay. 4 to 6 weeks, stay home, do everything you can to be personally responsible and mitigate mass spreading. And I don't know that it was legit, that people just didn't listen or just didn't work. In theory it would work, but obviously I think there's too many failures within the people that are in power and different structures that we have failed us to really put forth a good effort to prevent this from being chaos. And this is not something to blame solely on Trump. People have a bad habit of, looking at the person at the head of the ship, the captain, and placing all the blame on him when there's plenty of people that failed besides him, that locally, state level, like on many, many different areas have failed us. So the sole blame doesn't fall on the president. And that's part of the problem, is people who like to use the president as the person to be the cause of blame, like the person they blame everything on just because they hold this position, which is misplaces a lot of responsibility and accountability. But back on topic of, we did everything we were supposed to. None of us got sick, when things started easing, because we're here in Texas. We were one of the first states to reopen and start going back to normal. Everything seemed relatively normal and everything was fine. And our experience was, my wife went to hang out with her sisters. One of the sisters, or two of the sisters, ended up contracting the virus without knowing because they didn't show symptoms right away. They were all together, so therefore it's safe to assume they all got it. My wife comes back, it's safe to assume that I was going to get it, and we both had symptoms. We didn't get tested. My wife got tested recently because she's a teacher, she'll be going back to school, just to prove that she no longer has it or has the antibodies. But we both had symptoms, and our daughter seemed relatively normal through the whole thing. From when we knew that we were sick, we took our 2-week quarantine, stayed home, avoided contact with everybody. But my experience with COVID, obviously is not the same as everybody else. You hear all kinds of crazy stuff, but the symptoms were mild, nothing crazy. The weirdest thing was loss of taste and smell, and that's like 90% of people who get the virus experience that, which is a very bizarre thing. When I say loss of taste, literally you could make the strongest coffee, I could lick a bar of soap, I wouldn't taste anything. Smell was still hindered for a long time, even after I had no symptoms. And the other symptoms I had was some fatigue. Before I started showing symptoms, I had a headache for a couple days, but it's hard to tell with headaches because you can get a headache from, a hard day of workouts or dehydration, whatever it may be. So it's hard to tell, but I remember before we really started to lose taste and smell and stuff, I had a headache for probably about 2 or 3 days. I didn't really experience a lot of achiness in the body. A lot of people feel that. But I didn't really get that. I just had some fatigue. I just felt really tired. My sinuses were pretty messed up. but in a different way than normal. I normally always have like a sinus infection every year or so. This was a little bit different because of how it affected my sinuses was very different. I had like a lot of pressure in the upper part of my nose. It felt like I could breathe, but it still felt stuffy. So like normally when you're stuffy, like you can't really breathe through your nose. I didn't really experience that. It was more like I could breathe through my nose, but the stuffiness was so up high. It was really bizarre. But that was really it. I mean, at one point I had some really weird stuff where I got like lightheaded and stuff just for like one day. I had a fever of 100. I didn't feel like I had a fever, but my temperature was hot. But that was it. I mean, I still continued to have my day normally. I didn't like go anywhere, but the way I would have my day normally, where I work out and take care of stuff around the house and take care of some work stuff on the computer, like still the day to day was the same, even though I felt a little off. And that's how mild it was. But I know that for some people it affects them differently. But for us, it was pretty normal. And I think for a vast majority of people, that's how it would be. But the thing that's like super interesting to me about, getting it, and it makes me really think, is I'm generally, and my wife, we're generally healthy people. We've always been worked out a lot. We've always tried to eat healthy and, really care about how we are in terms of health. So it made me think to myself, why is it affecting people so different here in the U.S. compared to other places? And, we don't really get like really good data in general, but I think one of the things that frustrates me the most about the media and what's going on right now is, we have a really big hole in being accountable for what we've created here. I mean, we face a lot of problems here in this country that are different from other countries, but one of the problems we have here is a very privileged problem of 2/3 of the population are obese. And when I mean obese, I could be considered obese just because I'm a big guy. When I say like 2/3 of the population is obese, a lot of those people suffer from issues that come from obesity, whether it be diabetes, problems with breathing like COPD or stuff like that, or like apnea and stuff. Because when you're obese, it affects your health negatively. And I think that's like the most frustrating thing, because as someone who takes health serious, who's worked in the health industry, and who has always been an advocate for fitness, I don't care what kind of fitness, but if you're working on your being a healthy person and a functioning human being, you don't have to worry about the virus. Because if you're healthy, your body will fight it normal. And also, I think the other thing is, it's been talked about that, the sun does help with killing the virus. Not that I don't want to say that, work out in the sun and you'll be fine. But I do believe that, working out and being out in the sun, even if you were sick, would help you, help your body's immune response in a way. But, that's one thing that people don't want to talk about, is that there's a lot of people that are unhealthy, and they're in that spot because they make poor choices and were presented with poor choices for options, because it's cheaper to buy shit food. And from there, you have a lot of people that are going to suffer from this virus more than people that are healthy. Now, I'm not ignorantly saying this, that, oh my gosh, if you just work out and you eat healthy, you'll be fine. There's obviously, it would be stupid of me not to say that there is people that'll suffer from the virus differently than others because of different conditions or diseases or disorders they have, or they might be immunocompromised. And there's people that have underlying or pre-existing issues that will cause them to have problems. I'm not taking that lightly. Those people are obviously the ones that we're taking all these precautions for in the first place, because those are the people that are affecting the most, especially the elderly. But even with the elderly, my grandfather passed from the virus. He was not the healthiest individual in the world. He's always struggled with his weight, and he had diabetes and COPD. He met all the criteria to be someone that would fall victim to the virus. Whereas my grandmother, who's more or less, she's older than my grandfather was, and she's healthier, and she got the virus, and it was just like for me, very mild. She takes care of herself, and it's just the same thing. Even if you're older, if you're taking care of yourself and you do the right things, your chances of faring against the virus are much higher. Yet they don't talk about that. It's not something that's important that the media covers, because I'm a firm believer that it doesn't make them money. People that are unwell, that are fat, that are seeing the doctor, that makes them money. Healthy people have less problems in terms of health. I'm not saying, everybody has problems, but you're going to have less problems in terms of health than people that are unhealthy, obviously. So it's a very frustrating thing to look at, because for one, we did everything we could to help as a collective. And it seems like it was in vain, even if it wasn't. If we really did help flatten the curve and the hospitals didn't get overrun, great. But it seems like it was in vain, because we still ended up getting it. And the second thing that I wanted to touch on is this: that it's frustrating because your health is the most important thing. Health is wealth. It's like a cliche saying, but it's so true. I tell this to people that I would train and that I talk to. Ultimately, the most important thing is keeping your independence, being able to function as a person and do whatever you want. And that applies as you get older. The younger you are, you're not thinking about it. But if you're healthy and you're working out and you're staying in shape and you have a strong back and you don't have all these issues, as you get older, you're preventing yourself from becoming, decrepit, not being able to do anything. Because then when you start having back issues and you can't go outside and go hike or go fishing or do any things that you want to do, when you're older and you have to stop working, and you can't do the things you want because your back's fucked up, you lose the things that make your life important, in essence. And then it becomes a battle of, well, why am I here? Why am I alive if I can't do anything anyways? So health really is wealth, because if you maintain your health, you'll be wealth in life, wealthy in terms of your life. Being able to live how you want, be independent, not need anybody, and be able to take care of yourself. And ultimately, the people that live the longest and the happiest are the people that are able to maintain that, What's the point of living if you make all this money, but you can't even enjoy it because your back's messed up, your knees are messed up, and you have high blood pressure, and you suffer heart attacks, and you had a stroke? Then you're all fucked up, and you got all this money for what? And you can't even enjoy it. You're just worrying about the fact that you have to watch what you're eating and blah, blah, blah. So it just brings an interesting topic, and, it really made me think that, there's really a misalignment, and we're pulled in different directions by people that influence us to believe a lie. Not that I think COVID is a lie, because it's obviously real. I lost my grandfather to it, and I experienced it myself, even though it was very mild for me. It's real. I'm not doubting the validity of it, but it just makes me think, if we were a healthy population, it really wouldn't be that much of an issue. People don't talk about this as much, too, because it kind of touches on the topic. But Iceland is a small country, yes. But it's one of the places where they have the most healthy people, and they probably have one of the lowest death counts, because that country takes fitness and health seriously. Therefore, largely the population probably doesn't have a very hard time with the virus in general. It's just a testament to, what's really important. So, just something to end with on the topic is just I wanted to touch on, why is this significant? We see things on the news and on Facebook and people saying crazy shit all the time. And oftentimes we get sucked into that hole of feeling like we need to say something and we need to be the ones that are, setting people straight or whatever. We feel like our opinion is important. And it's important to realize that, in terms of like what I said, your health is wealth, and understanding that we can control what we control. And at the end of the day, if you want to be healthy, you have to take ownership of that. And it's the same thing in general in life. If we want to change the world, if we want to change the country, if we want to change the way things are in our culture, it starts with what you can control. And a lot of times people get wrapped up in this idea that everything will change if we just get rid of Trump, or everything will change if we just defund the police, or everything will change if we just get rid of this big structure. That's you gotta crawl before you walk. Meaning, we have to focus on what we can control first. So, if I am not setting a good example for the people around me and being a good person to the people around me that I have an immediate impact on, what am I doing? I'm going to go out and try to make a change in this bigger picture when I'm not even setting a good foundation? Because ultimately, think about it like this. The biggest impact we can make is those that we have the biggest influence on, which is the people immediately around us. Your family, your friends. Locally, people want to be looking at the big government, but you have local government that have a bigger impact on your life than you could even think of. And then from there, it's just a domino effect. If you focus on what you can control around you immediately and influence and teach, inspire, lift up those around you and help in the community around you, that'll be a domino effect to spread outward to the bigger picture. But I think a lot of people get misguided with this idea of, collectively we can demand the change. The change doesn't matter if you don't fundamentally change the culture from the smallest part first. That's part of the problem, is people want these things, but they're not willing to change the way that things are done within themselves, within their own community first. We want to set an example of what we want to transcend local to state to federal to the world. Ultimately, that should be the most important thing, because that's what we can control. Unfortunately, you, or even as a collective group, we as a collective group, even on if we got thousands of people, do you really think that we can make that big of a change? No, we have to change everything from the smallest to the medium to the large to the biggest stage first, because then the thousands of people turns to millions. The best way I can describe this is there's communities around the country, and it isn't exclusive to color anymore. You have poor white communities, poor Latino communities, you have poor black communities, that the community around them can help uplift. And then you would have less crime and less issues in those places if we collectively worked on improving and bettering those places. Obviously, there's a lot of resource that needs to go into that. But if I know that in my city there's problems with homelessness and the ghetto and, places that are poverty stricken, why am I going to focus on another state or the greater picture if I can't even focus on what I can immediately affect? And then once that starts to take root, it'll move into a bigger scale. And then it just keeps growing as you start moving that way. So then you go from, there's 10 of you guys, to 100, to thousands of people helping in those areas locally. Next thing you know, it becomes a statewide initiative, and then you go from thousands to hundreds of thousands, and then next thing you know, hundreds of thousands to millions. And it's just, it's hard work. And that's the thing, is people want to skip that hard part of doing the things that make you uncomfortable, you know. But that's the biggest impact we can make, and it happens with what you can control first. And that applies with anything. I don't really exclusively mean with just like poverty and injustice. I mean that with everything, you know, your health. If health is an important thing, we have to start with affecting the people around us. Help people that you know that are unhealthy get on track. You don't have to be pushy or anything like that, but offer them your help. He's like, hey, like, if you want to work out, come work out with me. Or, hey, if you want some advice, I'm always here. Just let me know. There you go. There's the health aspect starting, and you're controlling what you can control first. And then, I mean, it applies in every principle of life. You know, if you feel like, you know, people aren't accountable or have no responsibility, we as adults have a responsibility of instilling that into the younger generation, instead of making fun of them and saying, oh, they're just millennials or Gen Zs, they only know video games and this and that. That's minimizing and dismissing them before even giving them a shot. When you have to get to know them, you have to learn how they work, what their interests are, how they function, and build a bond with them to be able to inspire and influence and help them learn. So this idea of taking responsibility of things that you can control to make a bigger impact transcends just any general idea. You can really apply it to everything in your life. And that's how we become impactful people. And ultimately be a big change, and find a lot of value in your life. So that's what I just want to leave with on this. You know, COVID wasn't bad. It just made me think a little bit about a couple things, and just want to leave you guys with a little motivation that, you know, it all starts with you, you know. It's easy to blame other people and come after other people, but, you know, we have to be introspective, look at ourselves, and then take responsibility and control what we can control, and take it head on from there. And then that's going to be the first steps to us really making an impact in the world. And that's it for today. This podcast, episode 12. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with me. Like I said before, if you're listening on any streaming platforms, go ahead and follow along. If you're watching on YouTube, I know a lot of people that watch on YouTube are not subscribed. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you like, what you want to hear. And thanks for being a part of the journey. Until next time, guys, thanks for joining us. Peace.